drifting just below the surface of the world's oceans, carried by nothing more than the wind and the currents, a creature unlike any other silently glides across the waves. At first glance, it appears beautiful, an ethereal, translucent blue and purple float shimmering in the sunlight, looking almost too delicate to be a danger to anything. But the truth is far more unsettling. Beneath that floating, air-filled crest hangs a tangle of long, nearly invisible tentacles, lined with thousands upon thousands of venomous harpoons, each ready to fire at the slightest touch. These tendrils do not discriminate. They will ensnare and incapacitate anything unlucky enough to brush against them, whether it be an unsuspecting fish, a curious sea turtle, or even an unfortunate human swimmer. This is the Portuguese man-o'-war, one of the ocean's most misunderstood creatures. Many people mistake it for a jellyfish, a simple, singular organism mindlessly floating through the sea. But in reality, it is neither simple nor singular. It is not a jellyfish at all, but something much stranger and more complex. It is a siphonophore, a colonial organism made up of many individual creatures, each performing a specialized role, all working together as one. It is a deadly illusion, a floating paradox, a living contradiction. In this deep dive exploration, we will unravel the mysteries of this enigmatic drifter. We will explore what it truly is and how it survives without a brain or a central nervous system. We will uncover the horrifying efficiency of its hunting methods and the extreme pain it can inflict upon those who cross its path. We will examine the bizarre creatures that dare to live alongside it and even feed upon its venomous tentacles. Finally, we will discuss why sightings of the Portuguese man-o'-war are increasing and what that might mean for the future of our oceans. This is the full story of the Portuguese man-o'-war, both beautiful and deadly, fragile yet formidable, an oceanic ghost that demands our respect and, at times, our fear. What is the Portuguese man-o'-war? To understand the Portuguese man-o'-war, we must first discard the idea that it is a single animal. It is not an individual in the way that a shark, a sea turtle, or even a jellyfish is. Instead, it is a siphonophore, a colony of genetically identical organisms known as zooids. Each zooid is specialized to perform a specific function, and none can survive on its own. They are physically connected and entirely dependent on one another, operating as a single entity despite technically being multiple organisms. At the top of this colony is the pneumatophore, a gas-filled float that allows the Portuguese man-o'-war to remain at the surface. This float is filled with a mix of gases, including nitrogen, oxygen, and even a small amount of carbon monoxide, which is thought to be produced by the colony itself. The pneumatophore is responsible for the Portuguese man-o'-war's name, as early sailors believed its shape resembled the sails of 18th century Portuguese warships. The float allows the colony to drift at the mercy of ocean currents and wind patterns, unable to propel itself in any meaningful way. Some individuals are oriented to drift left, while others drift right, an evolutionary adaptation that prevents entire populations from being stranded on shore at once. Beneath this delicate yet essential structure dangle the deadly tentacles, which can reach astonishing lengths of up to 165 feet, making them longer than even the blue whale. These tentacles are not simple appendages, but instead complex structures known as dactylozoids, responsible for capturing prey. Lined with millions of specialized cells called nematocysts, they function as nature's most effective biological weapon. Each nematocyst is a microscopic coiled harpoon filled with venom capable of firing at high speed upon contact. The result is a nearly instantaneous injection of potent toxins that paralyze small fish and other unlucky creatures that happen to drift too close. The captured prey is then drawn toward the gastrozoids, the colony's specialized digestive polyps. These structures slowly break down the meal, absorbing nutrients and distributing them to the rest of the colony. Other specialized polyps, known as gonozoids, are responsible for reproduction, ensuring that new Portuguese man-o'-wars continue to populate the oceans. Despite its lack of a centralized brain, the Portuguese man-o'-war functions with remarkable efficiency. It is an organism of pure specialization, where every part has a purpose, and every zooid plays its role. How does it hunt and kill its prey? The Portuguese man-o'-war does not pursue its prey. It does not need to. Instead, it simply drifts, allowing its deadly tentacles to act as an enormous, near-invisible fishing net. Any small fish or crustacean that inadvertently brushes against a tentacle triggers an immediate and devastating response. The nematocysts fire, injecting venom that paralyzes and kills almost instantly. Once ensnared, the prey has no hope of escape. The venom itself is a cocktail of bioactive proteins, each with a specific function. Some components disrupt nerve signals, causing paralysis. Others attack cell membranes, leading to rapid tissue damage. Still others trigger an intense inflammatory response, ensuring that the pain is not only immediate but also long-lasting. This venom is highly effective against small marine creatures, but its effects on humans, while painful, are rarely fatal. Once a prey item is immobilized, the tentacles begin to contract, drawing it upward toward the digestive polyps. The gastrozoids then secrete digestive enzymes that break down the prey's tissues, allowing the colony to absorb the nutrients. This process is slow, often taking hours, during which time the prey remains partially intact but completely defenseless. Larger predators, such as fish, sea turtles, and even some seabirds, sometimes feed on Portuguese man-o'-wars, despite their venomous defenses. The loggerhead sea turtle, for instance, appears to be largely immune to the sting and frequently preys on them. Some fish, such as the man-o'-war fish, Nomius gronovi, have developed a resistance to the venom and live among the tentacles, stealing food scraps and using the man-o'-war for protection. The Portuguese man-o'-war's hunting strategy is a passive yet highly effective approach, relying on its sheer presence and the unpredictability of the ocean to bring food within reach. Unlike active hunters that must seek out their prey, this floating predator ensures that anything that ventures too close is unlikely to leave unscathed. What happens when a human gets stung? For most oceanic creatures, a brush with the Portuguese man-o'-war is a death sentence. Fish and small invertebrates succumb quickly to its venom, their nervous systems overwhelmed in mere moments. But for humans, the experience is different, not necessarily lethal, but excruciating. A single, brief encounter with a tentacle can leave searing welts, while prolonged contact can trigger systemic reactions ranging from nausea to difficulty breathing. The moment a person touches a Portuguese man-o'-war's tentacle, thousands of nematocysts fire in unison, releasing venom that attacks nerve endings, muscles, and skin tissue. Unlike some jellyfish stings, which may cause a mild rash or discomfort, a man-o'-war sting is often described as one of the most painful experiences imaginable. Victims frequently compare it to being lashed with a red-hot whip, with the pain radiating outward from the point of contact and intensifying over time. The burning sensation may last for hours or even days, and in severe cases, the venom can cause anaphylactic shock, respiratory distress, or even cardiac complications. Adding to the danger is the fact that detached tentacles can still sting long after they've separated from the main colony. Strands that have washed ashore may remain active for hours or even days, meaning that an innocent beachgoer could be stung without even stepping into the water. Worse yet, man-o-war stings often occur unexpectedly, unlike sharks or other dangerous marine creatures, which can sometimes be avoided. The nearly invisible tentacles can entangle swimmers before they even realize what's happening. How should a man-o-war sting be treated? There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to treating man-o-war stings, and some of the so-called remedies can actually make the pain worse. Many people believe that urinating on a jellyfish sting will neutralize the venom, but this is a complete myth. In fact, urine may cause more nematocysts to fire, intensifying the sting. The same is true for fresh water, which can trigger even more venom release. So what should you do if you get stung? First and foremost, get out of the water immediately. The pain from a man-o-war sting can be so intense that it causes panic, disorientation, or even temporary paralysis, which can be life-threatening in deep water. Once on shore, the next step is to remove any visible tentacle fragments, but this must be done carefully. Using tweezers or the edge of a credit card to lift the tentacles away is ideal, as using bare hands could result in additional stings. After removing tentacle pieces, rinsing the area with seawater is crucial. Fresh water, alcohol, or vinegar may reactivate undischarged nematocysts, worsening the sting. While vinegar is often recommended for true jellyfish stings, it should not be used for man-o-war stings, as their venom reacts differently. Instead, applying hot water between 104 degrees Celsius and 113 degrees Celsius, or a warm compress, can help neutralize the venom and alleviate some of the pain. If symptoms worsen, especially if the person experiences difficulty breathing, chest pain, or swelling, it's essential to seek immediate medical attention. Most man-o-war stings, while incredibly painful, are not life-threatening. However, rare cases of severe allergic reactions or secondary infections can pose serious risks, making proper first aid and medical evaluation critical. Why do Portuguese man-o-wars wash ashore? Unlike true jellyfish, which have some ability to propel themselves through the water, the Portuguese man-o-war is at the mercy of winds and ocean currents. This means that large numbers of them can suddenly appear in an area seemingly out of nowhere when conditions are right. These mass strandings often happen when strong onshore winds or storms push large groups of man-o-wars toward coastlines. Beaches in places like Australia, Florida, South Africa, and the Mediterranean frequently experience seasonal blooms of Portuguese man-o-wars, with hundreds or even thousands of them washing up in a single event. This can lead to temporary beach closures, as authorities work to warn visitors of the danger. Even when washed ashore, the man-o-war's tentacles remain highly venomous. Many beachgoers make the mistake of assuming that a washed-up specimen is harmless, only to be painfully stung when they attempt to touch it. Some tentacles remain active for days, and fragments buried in the sand can still pose a threat. Climate change may be increasing the frequency of these strandings. As ocean temperatures rise and weather patterns shift, Man-o-wars may be expanding into new territories, appearing in places where they were previously rare. Warmer waters also support larger populations of their primary prey, small fish, and plankton, which could lead to population booms in man-o-war colonies. Can anything eat the Portuguese man-o-war? Despite its venomous tentacles, the Portuguese man-o-war is not invincible. In fact, several species have evolved ways to feed on it, either by developing a resistance to its venom or by using unique adaptations to avoid its stings. One of the most fascinating predators of the Portuguese man-o-war is the blue dragon sea slug, also known as Glaucus atlanticus. This tiny but stunning creature ingests the man-o-war's nematocysts and stores them in its own body, repurposing them as a defense mechanism against predators. Essentially, the blue dragon not only eats the man-o-war, but also steals its weaponry and becomes just as venomous itself. Another surprising predator is the loggerhead sea turtle. Unlike many other marine animals that avoid the man-o-war's tentacles, loggerheads appear to be completely unaffected by the venom. Their thick, leathery mouths protect them from the stings, allowing them to consume Portuguese man-o-wars whole. Certain species of fish, such as the man-o-war fish, also known as Nomius granovi, live among the tentacles without being stung. These fish have developed a remarkable resistance to the venom and use the man-o-war's long tendrils as a form of protection from predators. While they don't consume the colony itself, they often steal scraps of food caught in its deadly web. Even seabirds have been observed pecking at Portuguese man-o-wars floating near the surface, though it is unclear whether they suffer any negative effects from consuming their venomous tentacles. The Portuguese man-o-war is a creature of contradictions, beautiful yet deadly, fragile yet formidable, mindless yet highly efficient. It does not hunt in the traditional sense, nor does it think or move with intention, yet it is an apex drifter, a master of passive predation. It is not one animal, but many living collective, perfectly adapted to its role in the ecosystem. Its sting is feared, its presence respected, and yet its role in the ocean remains as essential as that of any predator. The Portuguese man-o-war is a reminder that the ocean is full of wonders that can both captivate and terrify, often in equal measure. So next time you see one washed up on the shore, resist the urge to touch it. After all, even in death, the Portuguese man-o-war is still very much alive.